The Mercedes sedan swerved violently across 3 lanes of sole traffic, tires screaming against wet asphalt. Inside, 18-year-old Kang Ji-ho gripped the steering wheel with white knuckles, his phone still clutched in his trembling hand, the call with Sarah Mitchell, Amara, barely disconnected. He hadn't seen the motorcycle coming, hadn't noticed the rider in black leathers tracking him for the past 3 blocks. The impact came from behind, deliberate, calculated, sending his car spinning toward the concrete barrier. Metal shrieked, glass exploded, Jiho's head cracked against the side window, and the world tilted into darkness punctuated by flashing lights and distant sirens. When he opened his eyes, blood dripped into his vision. A shadow loomed over his shattered driver's window. Not paramedics, not police. A man in a black mask, pulling a gun from his jacket, the barrel aimed directly at Jiho's chest. "Message to your father," the man said in Korean, his voice distorted through a voice modulator. "The old rules are dead. The Song family remembers." The gun rose. Jiho's breath stopped. His hand fumbled for his phone, for anything, his father's number, emergency services, but his fingers wouldn't cooperate. Blood made everything slippery. Through the cracked windshield, he could see other cars stopping, people screaming, running away from the violence they didn't want to witness. Then, another crash, a different car, a beat-up taxi slamming into the motorcycle that had caused the accident, sending the rider flying. The gunman's attention shifted for just a second, and in that second, someone yanked open Jiho's passenger door. "Move over, now!" A woman's voice, urgent and commanding, speaking English with an American accent he'd recognize anywhere. Jiho's head snapped toward her, disbelief cutting through his pain. "Dr. Mitchell?" But she wasn't looking at him. She was already climbing into the passenger seat, reaching across his body to shift the car into reverse, her foot jamming down on the accelerator. The sedan lurched backward, tires spinning, pulling away from the gunman who was now running toward them, weapon raised. "Drive," she screamed. "Jiho, you have to drive! I can't reach the pedals from here!" His hands found the wheel on instinct, muscle memory from thousands of hours of practice kicking in despite the head trauma. He stomped on the gas, the car fishtailing wildly as they escaped the trapped position. Bullets punched through the back window, showering them with glass. Sarah, Amara, threw herself over his body, shielding him exactly as she had 5 years ago at the docks. "Not again!" Jiho gasped, tasting blood. "You can't do this again!" "Shut up and drive!" She was already on her phone, shouting coordinates in Korean to someone. His father. Had to be his father. Gangnam, near Olympic Boulevard. Jiho's been attacked. Song family remnants. We need extraction now. The car swerved through. Traffic. Jiho's vision swimming. Sarah's hands on the wheel helping him steer while her body remained a shield over his. Behind them, 2 motorcycles gave chase, their riders pulling weapons. "The parking garage," Sarah commanded, pointing ahead to a massive structure. "3rd level, northwest corner. Your father's people are already there." "How do you know?" "Because I never stopped being part of this world, Jiho. I just pretended I did." They careened into the parking garage, tires squealing up the spiral ramp. 2nd level, 3rd level. And there, waiting in the shadows, were 3 black SUVs with armed guards, and standing in the center of them all, looking older and more dangerous than Jiho remembered. "Appa!" Minjae's face was a mask of controlled fury and desperate relief. The moment Jiho's car skidded to a stop, guards surrounded it, weapons trained on every entrance. Minjae wrenched open the driver's door, his hands immediately checking his son for injuries, professional and thorough despite the emotion cracking through his composure. "How bad?" he demanded. "Head trauma, possible concussion, cuts from glass, but he's mobile," Sarah answered clinically, already out of the car and circling to Jiho's side, her trained hands examining him with the efficiency of someone who'd never stopped being a paramedic. "We need to move him. They'll have backup coming." Minjae's eyes met hers over his son's head, and the world seemed to stop. 5 years. 5 years since they'd said goodbye, since she'd driven away to Yeosu, since they'd promised never to see each other again. 5 years of pretending she didn't exist. "You came back," he said, his voice raw. I never left, she replied. Not really. Jiho watched them, his head throbbing, blood still trickling down his face. But even through the pain and confusion, he could see it, the way they looked at each other like drowning people seeing land for the first time. 5 years hadn't diminished whatever burned between them. If anything, the distance had intensified it, concentrated it into something that crackled in the air like electricity before a storm. We need to move, one of Min Jae's lieutenants said urgently, scanning the parking garage entrance. If they tracked him here, they did, Sarah said grimly. They've been tracking him for months, probably longer. This wasn't a random attack, this was coordinated, planned, and they knew exactly when to strike. Min Jae's jaw clenched. Get him in the SUV, now. We're going to the Gangnam safe house. 2 guards helped Jiho to his feet, and the world spun violently. He would have fallen if Sarah hadn't been there, supporting his weight with surprising strength for her frame. Min Jae was on his other side, and together they half-carried him to the middle SUV, settling him in the back seat. Sarah climbed in beside him, immediately pulling medical supplies from a bag one of the guards handed her. You just happened to have a trauma kit ready? Jiho asked weakly, watching her work. I've had one ready for 5 years, she replied, cleaning the gash on his forehead with careful efficiency. This is going to sting. She wasn't wrong. Jiho hissed as antiseptic hit the wound, but her hands were gentle despite their speed. Min Jae climbed into the front passenger seat, barking orders into his phone in rapid Korean, lockdown protocols, security sweeps, emergency protocols. The convoy of SUVs pulled out of the parking garage in tight formation, moving through Seoul traffic with practiced precision. I'm going to ask you some questions, Sarah said, shining a penlight in Jiho's eyes, checking his pupil response. I need you to answer as clearly as you can. What's your full name? Kang Jiho. What day is it? Thursday, March 14th. Who's the president of South Korea? Jiho rattled off the name, then added, I don't have a concussion. I know where I am and what happened. Humor me. She continued her examination, checking his neck for spinal injuries, palpating his ribs for breaks. Any nausea? Dizziness beyond what you'd expect from the adrenaline? No, just a headache, and confusion about how you managed to be in exactly the right place, at exactly the right time to save me. He caught her wrist as she reached for another bandage. How long have you been in Seoul? Sarah's eyes flicked to Min Jae in the front seat, then back to Jiho. I got on a plane 6 hours after you called me. I was already in Incheon when your car was hit. I'd been having you tracked by a private security firm since the moment you hung up. Why? Because I knew, she said simply. The second you told me you were joining your father's business, I knew they'd come for you. The timing was too perfect. Someone was listening to your calls, waiting for you to reach out to me, waiting for proof that I still cared. And the moment you gave them that proof, they struck. Min Jae turned in his seat, his face dark. Who? Who's been listening? I don't know yet, but I have suspicions. Sarah finished bandaging Jiho's head, her movement slowing as the immediate medical emergency passed, leaving only the weight of what had just happened. We need to talk, Min Jae. All of us. But first, we need to get Jiho somewhere secure where I can monitor him properly. The safe house materialized out of Seoul's urban landscape like a fortress disguised as a luxury apartment building. Underground parking, biometric security, guards positioned at every possible entrance and exit. They took a private elevator to the 15th floor, where a penthouse had been converted into something between a high-end hotel suite and a military command center. Jiho was led to a bedroom with medical equipment that rivaled a hospital. Clearly, this wasn't the first time injured people had needed treatment here. Sarah set to work immediately, hooking him up to monitors, checking his vitals, setting up an IV line with practiced efficiency. I'm fine, Jiho protested weakly. You have a head injury and you were in a car accident. You're not fine, you're functional. There's a difference. She adjusted the IV drip, her face set in professional lines that didn't quite hide the worry underneath. You're going to rest here while your father and I have a conversation. If anything changes, if you feel dizzy, nauseous, if your vision blurs or you feel sleepy beyond normal tiredness, you press this button immediately. She showed him the call button. Understand? Amara, Sarah, she corrected automatically. I'm Dr. Sarah Mitchell. No, you're not. Jiho caught her hand, his grip weak but determined. You're Amara Thompson. You've always been Amara Thompson. And you've been watching over us this whole time, haven't you? Not just gathering intelligence, actively protecting us. Tears shimmered in her eyes, but she blinked them back. Rest. We'll talk soon. I promise. She left before he could argue further, closing the door behind her. In the hallway, she found Minjai waiting, his back against the wall, looking more exhausted than she'd ever seen him. The expensive suit couldn't hide the tension in every line of his body, the weight of fear and relief and confusion all warring for dominance. Is he really okay? Minjai asked quietly. Yes. He's lucky. A few inches to the left, and that impact would have killed him. Sarah leaned against the opposite wall, suddenly aware of how tired she was. But he's young, he's strong, and he heals fast. He'll be fine. Because of you. Again, Minjai's voice roughened. 5 years ago, you took bullets for him. Today, you threw yourself over him again. You keep saving him. I keep saving both of you, Sarah corrected. Don't you understand that yet? When I left 5 years ago, I didn't stop loving you. I didn't stop caring. I just changed how I showed it. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words. Finally, Minjai pushed off the wall. We need to talk, properly. No interruptions, no guards listening, just us. He led her to a private office, smaller than the one he'd had in his main headquarters, but no less impressive. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed a panoramic view of Seoul at night, the city glittering like a fallen sky. Minjai closed the door, locked it, and turned to face her. Tell me everything, he said, from the beginning, from the moment you left Yosu. Sarah took a deep breath, organizing 5 years of secrets into something coherent. I tried to forget. I really did. For the first 6 months, I threw myself into work at the clinic. I treated patients. I learned Korean properly. I made friends. I was Dr. Sarah Mitchell, helpful American nurse, and I told myself that was enough. She moved to the window, staring out at the city lights. But I couldn't stop checking the news, couldn't stop searching your name online, looking for any mention of the Kang family, making sure you and Jiho were safe. It was obsessive, unhealthy, but I couldn't stop. Amara, let me finish. She turned to face him. About 8 months after I left, I was treating a Japanese businessman at the clinic. He was in Yosu for a fishing trip, got a hook in his hand, came to us for treatment. While I was stitching him up, he was on his phone, speaking Japanese. I speak enough Japanese to get by. Learned it from a friend in Seattle, and I heard him mention the Song family name. Heard him say something about the daughter and revenge and soul. Minjai went very still. What else did he say? Not much. He noticed I was listening and switched to another language I didn't recognize, but it was enough to make me start digging. Sarah pulled out her phone, scrolling through files. I started asking questions in the expat community, carefully, quietly. Most expats in Korea talk to each other, share information. I used my connections from the clinic, from people I'd treated, to build a network. She handed him the phone. That's when I found her. Song Minseo, 29 years old, raised in Osaka by her mother, who was the mistress of Song Young-ho, the Song family patriarch you killed 5 years ago. Minseo was kept secret, trained in business and combat from childhood, and she came to Korea 2 years ago with one mission: destroy the Kang family. Minjai scrolled through the file, his face growing paler with each image, each document. This is extensive, years of surveillance. 3 years, Sarah confirmed. Once I confirmed she existed and what she was planning, I couldn't just sit back. I couldn't warn you directly because if she knew I was watching, she'd know I still cared about you. She'd use that as leverage, use me against you. So I stayed invisible, built my intelligence network, tracked her movements, her associates, her plans. You've been working against her for 3 years? Alone? Not entirely alone. I hired people. Used money from my clinic work, from freelance medical consulting. I built a team, hackers, private investigators, former intelligence officers who owed me favors. Sarah's voice strengthened with pride. I created an entire shadow operation focused on keeping you and Jiho safe, and Minseo never knew I existed. Minjai set the phone down slowly, his eyes never leaving her face. You could have contacted me, told me, I would have protected you. I didn't need protection. I needed effectiveness. And the moment you knew I was involved, you would have done exactly what you're thinking right now. Pulled me back, put guards on me, made me visible. That would have ruined everything. She crossed her arms. I was more useful to you invisible. You were also in danger. I'm always in danger, Minjai. I was in danger the moment I threw myself in front of those bullets 5 years ago. I just learned to operate within that danger instead of running from it. He moved toward her, and she could see the conflict playing across his face. Anger that she'd risked herself, pride in what she'd accomplished, relief that she'd been watching over them, fear at how close they'd come to losing Jiho today. Why didn't you warn me this morning? He asked. When Jiho called you, you must have known it was dangerous. I did warn you. The moment I landed in Seoul, I sent an anonymous tip to your security team about increased chatter around Jiho. I'm guessing it got lost in the normal background noise of threats you deal with daily. Sarah's voice turned bitter. I should have been more direct. Should have broken protocol and called you myself. If I had, maybe nothing. You got on a plane the moment you knew he was in danger. You were here. You saved him. Minjai reached out, his hand cupping her face with a gentleness that seemed at odds with his reputation. You've been his guardian angel for 5 years, even when you were 6 hours away. I've been both your guardian angels, Sarah whispered. Did you really think I could love Jiho and not love you? That I could protect one without protecting the other? The air between them crackled with everything unsaid, everything denied for 5 years. Minjai's thumb traced the line of her cheek, and Sarah felt her careful control starting to crack. I thought about you every day, Minjai said, his voice low and intense. Every morning when I woke up, every night before I slept, I told myself it was better this way, that you were happy in Yosu, that you'd moved on. But I never moved on. I couldn't. Minjai, let me finish. His other hand came up, framing her face. I changed everything because of you. The organization, the rules, the way we operate, all of it shifted because you showed me there was another way to be strong. But the whole time I was changing, I told myself it was too late for us, that I'd given you freedom and I couldn't take it back, that loving you meant letting you go. You were right, Sarah said, even as her hands came up to grip his wrists. I needed that freedom, needed to find out who I was without the constant threat, without the fear. But freedom doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean stopping loving you. Then what does it mean? His forehead dropped to touch hers, his breath warm against her lips. Because I don't know how to do this, Amara. I don't know how to love you from a distance, how to keep you safe and keep you in my life simultaneously. Maybe you don't have to choose anymore. Sarah's voice trembled. Maybe there's a third option we didn't see 5 years ago because we were both too scared and too broken. What option? Partnership. Real partnership. Not me hiding in your penthouse while you fight battles. Not me and Yosu pretending you don't exist. But both of us using our strengths, your resources and power, my intelligence, network, and invisibility, to protect each other and Jiho. Minjai pulled back slightly, studying her face. You'd stay in Yosu? I'd maintain my base there, yes. My clinic, my life, my cover. But I'd also be your eyes and ears where your people can't go. Sarah's mind was racing now, seeing the possibilities. Think about it. I have access to hospitals, clinics, expat communities. People talk around medical professionals. They confess things when they're vulnerable. I could feed you intelligence that your regular channels would never get. And you'd be in danger, Minjai countered. If anyone discovered what you were doing, they won't, because I've been doing it for 3 years, and Minseo never caught on. The only reason she moved today was because Jiho called me directly, giving her proof that I still cared. As long as we're careful, as long as we maintain the fiction that I walked away and never looked back, I can keep operating in the shadows. I don't like it. You don't have to like it, you just have to trust me. Sarah's hands moved from his wrist to his chest, feeling his heart hammering beneath her palms. I'm not the same broken woman who left 5 years ago. I'm not someone who needs protecting. I'm someone who can stand beside you, who can protect you right back. I know, Minjay admitted. That's what terrifies me, because I spent 5 years telling myself you were safe in Yosu, living a normal life. And now, I find out you've been in danger this whole time. And I couldn't protect you. I didn't need you to protect me. I needed you to let me protect you. Sarah rose on her toes, bringing her face closer to his. And that's what love is, Minjay. Not one person shielding the other, but both people standing back to back, facing threats together. Together, he repeated, and something in his expression shifted, the fear giving way to possibility, the control giving way to hope. Even if together means being apart? Especially then, because being apart doesn't mean being absent, it means being strategic. The kiss, when it came, was inevitable. 5 years of separation, of denial, of pretending they didn't love each other. All of it shattered in the press of lips and the desperate way they held each other. Sarah's hands fisted in Minjay's shirt, pulling him closer, and his arms wrapped around her waist, lifting her off her feet as he deepened the kiss. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard, foreheads pressed together. I missed you, Minjay whispered. God, Amara, I missed you so much. Sarah, she corrected weakly. I have to stay Sarah. It's safer. No. His arms tightened. You're Amara to me. Always Amara. Sarah Mitchell is the mask you wear for the world. But here, with me, you're Amara Thompson. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist on maintaining the separation between her identities. But the truth was, she'd never stopped being Amara. Sarah Mitchell was useful, was necessary, but Amara Thompson was who she really was. The woman who'd thrown herself in front of bullets, who'd spent 3 years secretly protecting the people she loved, who'd gotten on a plane the moment those people were in danger. Okay, she whispered. Amara, but only with you and Jiho. The rest of the world gets Sarah. Deal. He kissed her again, softer this time, tender instead of desperate. Now tell me about Minseo's operation, everything, because we're ending this tonight. They moved to the desk, spreading out the intelligence Sarah had gathered over 3 years. Locations, associates, financial records, security patterns. She'd documented everything with the thoroughness of someone who knew how high the stakes were. She's been playing the long game, Sarah explained, pointing to a timeline. After you destroyed the Song family 5 years ago, she spent 2 years building legitimacy. She came to Seoul as a successful businesswoman from Japan, started an import-export company, made all the right connections. On the surface, she's completely clean. But underneath? Underneath, she's been systematically rebuilding the Song family network, recruiting former associates, bringing in new people, establishing herself as the heir. But she's been patient. She knew attacking you directly would fail. You're too strong, too established. So she's been waiting for the perfect moment. Jiho joining the business, Minjay said grimly. Exactly. Your son stepping into the public eye, becoming a visible target. That was what she was waiting for. Sarah pulled up surveillance photos. She's been watching him for months. His schedule, his routes, his habits. The attack today wasn't opportunistic. It was planned down to the minute. And if you hadn't been there, don't. Sarah cut him off. I was there. That's what matters. Minjay studied the intelligence spread before them, his expression hardening into the cold calculation of a man who'd built an empire through strategic thinking. Where is she now? Her company headquarters in Gangnam. She usually works late, stays until midnight or later. I've documented her patterns for months. Then we hit her tonight. Now, while she thinks Jiho is dead or dying, while she thinks she's winning. Minjay, we need to be smart about this. I am being smart. He pulled out his phone, already texting his lieutenants. She tried to kill my son. She's been stalking him for months while I was blind to it. And she's put you back in danger by forcing you out of the shadows. So no, I'm not going to be cautious. I'm going to be final. Sarah wanted to argue, wanted to counsel patience and planning, but she'd seen the look in Minseo's people's eyes when they'd aimed that gun at Jiho. This wasn't going to end with a negotiation or careful political maneuvering. This was going to end with blood. "Then we do it together," she said. "You don't go in there without me." "Absolutely not." "Together," she repeated firmly. "You said this was a partnership. You said we protect each other. So we do this together or not at all." Minjai looked like he wanted to argue, but something in her expression must have convinced him. "Fine, but you follow my lead, you stay behind my guards, and you wear body armor. Deal." A knock on the door interrupted them. One of Minjai's lieutenants, looking grim. "Boss, we have a situation." "What kind of situation?" "Multiple situations. 3 of our businesses were hit in the last hour. The restaurant in Itaewon, the shipping company in Busan, and the real estate office here in Gangnam. All 3 are on fire, and they left messages." Minjai's jaw clenched. "Show me." The lieutenant pulled up his phone, showing photos of graffiti spray-painted across smoldering walls. The same message at all 3 locations. "The daughter remembers. The daughter takes back what's hers, starting with the son." Sarah felt ice flood her veins. "She's escalating. The attack on Jiho wasn't the end game, it was the opening move." "Then we accelerate our timeline." Minjae turned to his lieutenant. "Full tactical response. I want every person we have mobilized within the hour. We're hitting Song Min-seo's headquarters tonight, and we're not leaving until her organization is destroyed." "Sir, that's not a suggestion. Make it happen." The lieutenant left, already barking orders into his phone. Minjae turned back to Sarah, and the look in his eyes made her shiver. This was the man people feared, the one who'd built an empire on strength and strategy and the willingness to do whatever was necessary to protect what was his. "I need to check on Jiho," Sarah said. "Make sure he's stable before we move." "Go, I'll finish coordinating here." Sarah left the office, her mind racing. This was happening. They were going to war, and unlike 5 years ago, she wasn't going to hide from it. She was going to walk into it beside Minjai, using every skill she'd learned in 3 years of shadow operations. Jiho was awake when she entered his room, sitting up in bed and looking more alert than he had any right to be given his injuries. "You should be resting," Sarah said automatically. "I can rest when I'm dead," Jiho replied, echoing something his father must have said 100 times. "What's happening? I can hear people moving, phones ringing. Something's wrong." Sarah sat on the edge of his bed, taking his hand. "Minseo's people hit 3 of your father's businesses. They're escalating. We're moving against her tonight." "I'm coming with you." "No, you're not. You have a head injury." "I'm coming," Jiho repeated, and there was steel in his voice that reminded her exactly whose son he was. "She tried to kill me. She's threatening my family. I'm not sitting in a safe room while everyone else fights." "Jiho, I'm 18. Amara, not 8. I'm not a child who needs protecting anymore." He swung his legs out of bed, ignoring her protests. "I've been training for this my whole life. Hand-to-hand combat, weapons, tactical thinking. Appa made sure I could protect myself. And today, I'm going to prove it. Your father will never allow it." "Then we don't tell him until it's too late." Jiho stood, swaying slightly but steadying himself. "Please, I can't sit here safe while everyone I love walks into danger. I just can't." Sarah studied him, seeing not the 8-year-old boy she'd saved 5 years ago, but the young man he'd become. Strong, determined, brave in ways that had nothing to do with recklessness and everything to do with love. She understood that bravery. It was the same thing that had made her throw herself in front of bullets. "If I agree to this, and I'm not saying I am, you follow orders, mine and your father's. No heroics, no taking unnecessary risks. You stay behind the guards at all times." "Agreed. And you wear full tactical gear, helmet, vest, everything." "Done," Sarah sighed, knowing she was going to regret this. "Get dressed. We leave in 30 minutes. Welcome to Afro-Korean Story Hub. This story is getting intense. If you're hooked, hit that like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling us, should Jiho go into battle? Is Amara making the right choice? Your engagement keeps these stories coming. The tactical van was cramped with Minjai's best operatives, all of them checking weapons and reviewing the building schematics Sarah had provided. When Jiho climbed in behind Sarah, the temperature in the van dropped about 20 degrees. "What is he doing here?" Minjae's voice was dangerously quiet. "I'm here because it's my fight too," Jiho said before Sarah could answer. "She tried to kill me, Appa. I have a right to be here. You have a head injury and no business being in a combat situation. I have tactical training and every business being here." Jiho moved to sit beside his father, meeting his eyes steadily. "You've been preparing me for this world my whole life. You can't be surprised when I want to actually be part of it." Minjae looked at Sarah, his expression accusing. "You allowed this?" "I tried to stop him. He made valid points." Sarah held up a hand before Minjae could explode. "He's not going in first wave. He stays in the van with me, monitoring communications and security feeds. If anything goes wrong, we're his backup. That's the compromise." "There is no compromise. Appa." Jiho's voice was quiet but firm. "I'm 18. In a few months, I'm joining the organization officially. You can't keep me in safe rooms forever. At some point, you have to trust that you raised me right, that I can handle this." The silence that followed was tense, every operative in the van carefully studying their equipment to avoid being part of this family argument. Finally, Minjae's shoulders sagged slightly. "You stay in the van. You monitor communications. If I give the order to retreat, you go immediately. No arguments, no delays. Understood?" "Yes, sir." "And you," Minjae turned to Sarah, "you watch him. If anything goes sideways, if there's even a hint of danger reaching this van, you get him out. Drive away, call for backup, do whatever you have to do. He's the priority." "I understand," Sarah said softly, understanding the real message underneath. Minjae was entrusting her with the most precious thing in his world, trusting her the way he'd trusted her 5 years ago when she threw herself in front of bullets. The van pulled up 2 blocks from Minseo's building, parking in the shadows between streetlights. Through the windows, they could see the modern glass structure lit up like a beacon, looking completely innocuous. No one would guess it housed the headquarters of a criminal organization bent on revenge. "Team 1, you take the ground floor," Minjae ordered, his voice cold and commanding. "Team 2, second floor offices. Team 3 secures the exits. No one leaves that building without being identified and cleared. Are we clear?" A chorus of affirmatives. The operatives filed out of the van, moving with military precision. In minutes, they were in position, waiting for the signal. Minjae turned to Sarah one last time. "If this goes wrong, it won't. But if it does," he cupped her face, thumb brushing across her cheek. "Take care of him. Promise me." "I promise. But you're coming back, Minjae. We didn't find each other again just to lose each other now." He kissed her, hard and fast, then followed his team out of the van. Sarah moved to the communication station, settling in beside Jiho, who was already pulling up security feeds on multiple screens. "I have eyes on all entrances," Jiho reported, his voice steady despite the fear she could see in his eyes. "Team 1 is moving in now. Ground floor guards are down. Non-lethal takedowns. They're through the lobby." Sarah monitored the radio chatter, listening to the precise, clipped reports from Minjae's teams as they moved through the building. So far, everything was going according to plan. Too well, actually. Her paramedic instincts, honed by years of reading situations that went from calm to critical in seconds, started screaming warnings. "This is too easy," she muttered. "What do you mean?" "Look at the security. Where are the guards you documented? Where's the resistance?" Sarah pulled up the schematics, comparing them to the live feeds. "Minseo is smart, patient, calculating. She wouldn't leave her headquarters this vulnerable." "You think it's a trap?" "I think..." Sarah's blood ran cold as she noticed something on one of the screens. "Jiho, zoom in on the second floor hallway, the one your father just entered." He did, and they both saw it at the same time. Thin wires along the baseboards, barely visible, leading to... "It's rigged," Sarah breathed. "The whole building is rigged to blow." She grabbed the radio, already shouting. "Minjae, get out. It's a trap. The building is rigged. Get your people out now." Static. Then Minjae's voice, calm despite the urgency underneath. "Copy. Teams, withdraw. Now, controlled retreat. On the screens, they could see his team starting to pull back. But then, movement on the third floor. A door opening, a woman stepping out, and even through the grainy security footage, Sarah recognized her from months of surveillance. Song Min-seo, holding a detonator. No, Sarah whispered. On the radio, Min-jae's voice cut through the static. She's here. Third floor. I'm going after her. Min-jae, no, Sarah screamed into the radio. It's what she wants. She's baiting you. I can't let her escape. If she gets away now, this never ends. Ji-ho will never be safe. Sarah's mind raced, paramedic training colliding with 3 years of intelligence work. Min-seo had planned this perfectly. Draw Min-jae in with the attacks on Ji-ho and his businesses, lure him to her building, and now force him to choose between letting her escape or walking into a death trap. There has to be another way, Sarah muttered, scanning the building schematics frantically. Then, she saw it. A service elevator on the east side, one she'd documented months ago, but hadn't included in tonight's assault plan because it required a specific keycard. Ji-ho, I have an idea, but I need you to do exactly what I say. What kind of idea? The kind that gets your father out alive. She was already moving to the driver's seat, starting the van. Call building maintenance for that address. Tell them there's a gas leak reported on the third floor. Use your father's influence. They'll respond immediately. But there's no gas leak. There will be in about 3 minutes when I crash this van through their service entrance. She threw the van into gear, pulling out of their hiding spot. Make the call, then contact your father's teams. Tell them to evacuate everyone within a 2-block radius. This is about to get loud. Amara, what are you doing? What I've always done, saving your family. She pressed the accelerator, the van lurching forward. And Ji-ho, when I tell you to jump out, you jump. No arguments. The van picked up speed, heading directly for the building's east side service entrance. On the radio, she could hear Min-jae's team still trying to evacuate, could hear the tension in his voice as he confronted Min-seo on the third floor. You destroyed my family, Min-seo's voice crackled through someone's open mic. My father, my brothers, everything. Did you think there wouldn't be consequences? Your father tried to kill my son, Min-jae replied, his voice ice cold. He paid the price for that, just as you're about to. Am I? Look around you, Kang Min-jae. This entire building is wired with enough explosives to level 3 city blocks. The moment my thumb leaves this detonator, we all die. Your men, my men, and most importantly, you. Sarah's hands tightened on the steering wheel. 50 meters from the building. 40. 30. Ji-ho, jump! Now! He hesitated for only a second, then threw open the passenger door and rolled out onto the pavement, his tactical training taking over. Sarah gritted her teeth, aiming the van directly at the reinforced service entrance. 20 meters. 10. Min-jae, this is Amara. Get to the east stairwell. Trust me. Move now! She didn't wait for his response. The van hit the service entrance with a screaming crash of metal and glass, the reinforced doors crumpling under the impact. The van's momentum carried it through, into the building's service corridor, alarms shrieking, sprinklers activating from the damage. Sarah threw herself out of the van before it fully stopped, rolling across concrete, her body screaming in protest but adrenaline keeping her moving. Behind her, the van's fuel tank ruptured, gasoline spreading across the floor, and she could already hear shouts of confusion from Min-seo's remaining guards. She ran for the service elevator, praying the crash had disrupted the building's security enough to bypass the keycard requirement. The doors were dented but functional, and when she slammed her palm against the call button, miracle of miracles, they opened. Third floor. She had to get to the third floor. The elevator lurched upward, agonizingly slow. Sarah checked her phone. The building schematics showed Min-seo's location in the main office, Min-jae approximately 20 meters away in the hallway. If she could reach him, if she could get him to the east stairwell before Min-seo realized what was happening. The elevator doors opened on the third floor to chaos. Min-jae's remaining team members were spread throughout the hallway, weapons trained on the office where Min-seo had barricaded herself. Smoke from Sarah's van crash was billowing up through the ventilation system, mixing with the sprinkler water to create a choking fog. Amara, Min-jae's voice shocked and furious. What the hell are you doing here? Saving you. Again. She grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the east stairwell. The building's rigged to blow. She's going to kill everyone here, including herself. We have maybe 2 minutes. I can't leave. You can and you will. Sarah's voice cracked with desperation. Min-jae, please. I didn't spend 3 years protecting you just to watch you die trying to prove a point. Let her have this building. Let her think she's won, but live. For me, for Jiho, please. She saw the moment he made the decision, saw the cold calculation give way to something more human. He turned to his team. Fall back! East stairwell now! Anyone not out of this building in 90 seconds is dead. They moved, professional and fast, the remaining operatives streaming toward the exit Sarah had opened for them. Min-jae grabbed Sarah's hand, and they ran together, his guards surrounding them, feet pounding on concrete stairs. Behind them, Sarah heard Min-seo's voice, over the building's intercom system, triumphant and terrible. You can't run from justice, Kang Min-jae! You can't escape what you've done! Ground floor, one of the guards shouted. Move! Move! They burst out of the east exit into an alley. Rain pouring down, the night air shockingly cold after the smoke-filled building. Sarah counted heads frantically. All of Min-jae's team was out, running, putting distance between themselves and the building. They made it half a block before the explosion hit. The blast was enormous, a rolling wave of heat and sound that knocked them off their feet and sent debris raining down like deadly hail. Sarah felt Min-jae's body cover hers, protecting her the same way she'd protected Jiho, and for a moment there was nothing but noise and chaos and the certainty that they were about to die. Then silence, broken only by car alarms and the crackle of flames. Sarah opened her eyes to find Min-jae's face inches from hers, both of them covered in dust and minor cuts, but alive. Incredibly, impossibly alive. Everyone accounted for? Min-jae called out, his voice hoarse. His guards checked in one by one. Injuries, some serious, but no casualties. They'd all made it out. All of them, except Min-seo? Sarah asked. Dead, one of the guards reported, pointing to the burning wreckage. No one could survive that. Min-jae helped Sarah to her feet, and they stood together watching the building burn, fire trucks already screaming toward them in the distance. It was over. After 5 years of threat, and 3 years of Sarah's secret vigilance, and tonight's desperate battle, it was finally over. The van, Sarah said suddenly, remembering. I stole your van and crashed it into a building. Despite everything, the explosion, the danger, the adrenaline still coursing through both their systems, Min-jae laughed. Actually laughed, the sound rusty from disuse but genuine. You stole my van and used it as a battering ram to save my life. Again! It's becoming a habit. A very expensive habit. But he was smiling, pulling her close, and Sarah let herself lean into him, exhaustion finally catching up with the adrenaline. Thank you. For the van. For the warning. For not staying in Yeosu. I told you. I never really left. Appa! Amara! They turned to see Jiho running toward them, flanked by more of Min-jae's guards who must have retrieved him from where he'd jumped out of the van. The boy's face was streaked with tears and dust, his helmet askew, but he was whole and safe and alive. He crashed into both of them, arms wrapping around them fiercely. You're okay. You're both okay. I saw the explosion and I thought... We're fine, Min-jae assured him, one arm around his son, the other around Sarah. We're all fine. They stood like that in the rain and the smoke and the strobing lights of emergency vehicles, holding each other while the evidence of their battle burned behind them. A family, unconventional and complicated and held together by sacrifice and love and the kind of courage that meant choosing each other even when the world made that choice dangerous. The aftermath took hours. Police questioning, fire marshal inspections, statements given, and evidence collected. Min-jae's lawyers arrived within 20 minutes, already spinning the narrative. A gas leak, a tragic accident, Mr. Kang and his security team fortunate to escape with their lives. The building had been owned by a shell corporation that would be traced back to the Song family eventually. But for now, the official story held. It was almost dawn by the time they returned to the Gangnam safe house. Ji-ho fell asleep in the car, exhaustion finally overwhelming his adrenaline. Min-jae carried him inside, settling him in bed with the gentleness of a father who'd come too close to losing his son. Sarah waited in the living room, watching the sun rise over Seoul through the floor-to-ceiling windows. She'd changed into clean clothes someone had provided, washed the smoke and dust from her face and hands, but she could still smell burning in her hair, could still feel the impact of the explosion rattling through her bones. "He's asleep," Min-jae said quietly, joining her at the window. He'd also cleaned up, changed into casual clothes that made him look less like a mafia boss and more like just a man, tired and relieved and alive. "Good. He needs rest." Sarah didn't look at him, still processing everything that had happened. The head injury, the adrenaline, the stress. He needs at least 12 hours of uninterrupted sleep. "And what do you need?" The question made her turn. Min-jae was watching her with an intensity that had nothing to do with danger and everything to do with the 5 years they'd spent apart, the night they'd just survived, the future that was suddenly, impossibly open before them. "I don't know," she admitted. "For so long I've been in protection mode, watching, guarding, staying ready for the next threat, and now that threat is gone and I don't know what to do with myself." "You could rest. I'm not tired. You could go back to Yeosu, to your clinic, your patients, your normal life." "Is that what you want?" She searched his face. "For me to go back, pretend this never happened?" "No." The word was immediate and vehement. "God, no. What I want is for you to stay, but not because you feel obligated, not because there's still danger, because you want to, because we're choosing each other, not because circumstances force us together." Sarah moved closer, her hand finding his. "What would that look like? Us choosing each other?" "I don't know," Min-jae admitted, "but Ji-ho was right last night. Love doesn't have to look the way we thought it would. It doesn't have to be you living here full-time, waiting for attacks. And it doesn't have to be you in Yeosu pretending I don't exist." "A real partnership," Sarah said, remembering Ji-ho's words. "A real partnership. You keep your clinic, your work, your life in Yeosu, but you're also part of this family. You visit, we visit, we communicate, we share information, we protect each other." His hands came up to frame her face. "And maybe, eventually, if it feels right, we figure out something more permanent. But there's no rush, no pressure, just us, figuring it out together." Tears blurred Sarah's vision. "I spent 5 years thinking I had to choose between healing people and being part of your world. 3 years, proving I could do both. And now, you're telling me I don't have to choose at all. You never had to choose. I just couldn't see it 5 years ago. I was too focused on keeping you safe by pushing you away. I didn't understand that sometimes the safest place for someone is beside you, not away from you." "Beside you," Sarah repeated, testing the words. "Not behind you, not protected by you. Beside you." "Exactly." Min-jae's smile was tentative, hopeful. "So what do you say, Amara Thompson? Will you be my partner? Will you stay in my life and let me stay in yours?" Sarah thought about the past 5 years, the loneliness of Yeosu, the satisfaction of helping patients, the secret vigilance that had consumed her nights. She thought about the past 3 years building her intelligence network, watching from the shadows, protecting without being present. And she thought about tonight, the terror and the triumph, the way they'd worked together, the moment when she'd crashed that van through the building and known she was exactly where she was supposed to be. "Yes," she said simply, "yes to all of it. The partnership, the visits, the figuring it out together. Yes." The kiss was different this time. Not desperate or fierce, but tender and full of promise. The kiss of two people who'd found each other in the worst possible circumstances, lost each other for the best possible reasons, and found each other again when they were finally ready. When they pulled apart, the sun was fully up, painting Seoul in shades of gold and pink. A new day, a new beginning. "I should check on Ji-ho again," Sarah said reluctantly. He's fine, but we can check together. Minjae took her hand and they walked down the hallway together, side by side, instead of one behind the other. Jiho was still sleeping, his face peaceful despite the bandage on his head and the events of the past 24 hours. Sarah checked his vitals quietly, satisfied with what she found. Strong heartbeat, normal breathing, good color. He would be fine. He's growing up, Minjae said softly, standing beside her. I keep trying to protect him, like he's still 8 years old, still that boy in the car. But he's not. He's becoming a man. A good man, Sarah corrected. Because you raised him right, because even in this world, even surrounded by violence and danger, you taught him to value courage and loyalty and love. That's rare, Minjae. I had a good teacher. He looked at her. 5 years ago, you showed us what real courage looked like. What it meant to protect someone not because you had to, but because you chose to. That changed everything. Changed me. Changed how I raised him. Changed what I wanted the Kang family to become. And what do you want it to become? Something better. Something that uses its power to protect instead of just to dominate. Something Jiho can be proud of when he takes over. Minjae's voice was quiet but certain. Something worthy of the sacrifice you made for us. Sarah's throat tightened. I didn't do it for gratitude or to change your organization. I did it because I saw a child in danger and I moved. That's all. That's everything. Minjae pulled her close and they stood there watching Jiho sleep, the three of them together in the quiet safety of dawn. And whether you meant to or not, you gave us the blueprint for what we could become. What we will become. We, Sarah repeated. Not just you and Jiho. We. We, Minjae confirmed. All three of us. A family. 2 weeks later, Sarah stood in her clinic in Yosu, stitching up a fisherman's hand while Mrs. Kim from next door waited with kimchi and gossip. It was a perfect morning. Sunny. Warm. The ocean visible through the clinic windows. Patients who needed help but weren't in mortal danger. Normal. Peaceful. Exactly what she'd wanted 5 years ago when she'd left Seoul. But now, normal felt different, because tucked in her pocket was a phone that rang regularly with updates from Seoul. Because pinned to her refrigerator at home was a new drawing from Jiho, showing 3 figures. 1 Korean man, 1 Korean boy, 1 black woman, standing together with the words, "My family," carefully lettered underneath. Because her weekends were no longer lonely, but filled with video calls and occasional visits north, where she'd help with medical emergencies in Minjae's organization, and he'd help with her more complicated cases via consultation. Partnership. Real partnership. Her phone buzzed with a text. Minjae, sending a photo, him and Jiho at some business meeting, both in suits. Jiho looking uncomfortable, but proud. The message underneath, he's doing well, misses you. We both do. Coming to Yosu this weekend? Sarah smiled, typing back. Yes. I'll make dinner. Tell Jiho to bring his calculus homework. He's not getting out of studying. Another buzz. You're cruel. He says that's child abuse. He's 18. Not a child. My point exactly. See you Friday. Love you both. A pause then. Love you too. Stay safe, guardian angel. Sarah pocketed her phone, returning her attention to the fisherman, whose hand was now perfectly stitched. Keep it dry for 48 hours. No heavy work for a week. If you see any signs of infection, redness, heat, swelling, come back immediately. He thanked her profusely, pressing payment into her hand despite her protests, and left. Mrs. Kim immediately leaned forward, eyes bright with curiosity. You're smiling more lately, the older woman observed in Korean. Is there a man? Sarah laughed. There's always a man with you, Mrs. Kim. You're determined to marry me off. A beautiful young woman shouldn't be alone, and I've seen you on your phone smiling like that. That's not a work smile, that's a love smile. Maybe it is, Sarah admitted, but it's complicated. Love is always complicated. Mrs. Kim patted her hand. The question is whether it's worth the complication. Is it? Sarah thought about Minjae's rare smiles, Jiho's laughter, the way they'd all learned to protect each other in their own ways. She thought about the partnership they'd built. Unconventional and sometimes chaotic, but real and solid and theirs. Yes, she said firmly, it's absolutely worth it. In Seoul, Kang Min-jae sat in his office reviewing reports from his newly restructured organization. No civilian targets, no attacks on children, clean operations with minimal violence. It was slower, less dramatic than the old ways, but more sustainable, more ethical, more like what Imara and Ji-ho would be proud of. His phone rang, his private line, the one only a handful of people had. "Sir, we have a situation," one of his intelligence officers reported. "There's chatter about a new group moving in from Busan. They're making noise about the power vacuum left by the Song family." 5 years ago, Min-jae would have responded with immediate force, crushed them before they could establish themselves. But 5 years ago, he hadn't learned what he knew now. "Gather intelligence first," he ordered. "Full workup, who they are, what they want, whether they're actually a threat or just posturing. And contact Dr. Mitchell. She has connections in Busan through her clinic network. She might hear things our people can't." "Yes, sir." He hung up, already texting Amara with the details. Within minutes, she responded with 3 names and locations. People she knew in Busan who might have information. By that afternoon, they'd have a complete picture. Partnership. It was more effective than he'd ever imagined. Ji-ho appeared in his doorway, loosening his tie with the relief of someone escaping formal clothes. The meeting with the shipping contractors went well. They're on board with the new safety protocols. "Good work," Min-jae studied his son, seeing the young man he was becoming. "Amara says you're bringing calculus homework this weekend." Ji-ho groaned. "Of course she does! Can't I have one weekend without her being all responsible and educational?" "No, that's a part of having a doctor in the family. They're obsessed with improvement." But Min-jae was smiling. "She also said she's making dinner, which means actual food instead of takeout. So, suffer through the math tutoring?" "Fine," Ji-ho said, but he was smiling too. "I'm glad she's coming. The place feels empty when she's not here." "It does," Min-jae agreed. "But that's what makes it special when she is. We're learning that being apart doesn't mean being absent. It means appreciating the time we have together." Very philosophical, Appa. Ji-ho moved to the window, looking out at the Seoul skyline. "Do you think this can last? The 3 of us. This weird arrangement where she's both in our lives and not?" "I think," Min-jae said carefully, "that 5 years ago, I would have said no. I would have thought we needed traditional structures, clear definitions, everything organized and controlled. But Amara taught me that some things work better when they're flexible, when they grow naturally instead of being forced into predetermined shapes." "So that's a yes?" "That's a yes." Min-jae joined his son at the window. "We're building something new here, Ji-ho. Not just in the organization, but in our family. And new things are scary, but they're also full of possibility." "I like it," Ji-ho said quietly. "The possibility, the idea that we can be different from what people expect, that family doesn't have to look one specific way." "Neither does love," Min-jae added, "or courage, or strength. Amara showed us that 5 years ago when she jumped in front of those bullets, and she keeps showing us every day with the life she's built." They stood together, father and son, watching the city that had almost destroyed them all but had instead forged them into something stronger, something better. Friday evening, Sarah's car pulled up to the Gangnam penthouse. She'd made the drive so many times now that the route was automatic, the security checks familiar, the guards greeting her by name. Ji-ho met her at the door, immediately taking her bags. "I brought us ingredients for bibimbap," she announced. "And yes, I remembered the gochujang you like." "You're the best," Ji-ho said, hugging her carefully. His head wound had healed to a thin scar hidden by his hair, barely noticeable. "Calculus after dinner?" "Nice try. Calculus before dinner. Incentivizes you to work fast." He groaned but was laughing as he led her inside. The penthouse looked the same but felt different. Lived in, warm, with small touches that showed her presence. A medical bag in the hallway closet. Her favorite tea in the kitchen. photos on the mantel showing the three of them together. Minjay emerged from his office, and the smile that crossed his face when he saw her made Sarah's heart skip. He crossed to her, pulling her into a kiss that was becoming familiar, but never ordinary. "Traffic?" he asked. "Not bad, left early to avoid the rush." She looked between them, these two men who'd become her family in the most unexpected way. "So, what chaos has happened in the 2 weeks since I've been here?" "Define chaos," Jiho said innocently. "That bad?" "There was a minor incident with a rival organization," Minjay admitted. "But we handled it, with intelligence gathering and negotiation instead of violence. Your influence. And there may have been a small explosion," Jiho added. "But very small, hardly worth mentioning." "Jiho, controlled demolition of an old warehouse, totally planned, no one was hurt." Sarah looked at Minjay, who shrugged. "He's technically correct. It was controlled and planned, just not by us initially." "I'm going to need details, Sarah said, but she was smiling. "After calculus, which we're starting now because clearly someone